Never assume Royal Caribbean gets everything right, because one overlooked detail could ruin your cabin, your schedule, or your sanity before the ship even leaves port. You might think you're booking with the most polished cruise line on the seas, but what you don't know about Royal Caribbean could cost you in comfort, money, and even respect from the crew. Ready to avoid disaster? In this video, we're exposing 13 brutally honest truths about Royal Caribbean, starting with the cabin nightmares no one warns you about, and ending with the unexpected perks that even veteran cruisers love. From overpriced drink packages and crew burnout on megaships to insider tricks, hidden upsells, and VIP treatment that actually delivers, we're pulling back the curtain on what really goes on. This isn't sugar-coated, it's the real stuff crew members whisper about and guests only discover when it's too late. Ready to cruise smarter, save money, and see Royal Caribbean in a whole new light? Let's dive in. You booked what looked like a great deal, a balcony cabin with a decent view, midship near the elevators. But what the deck map didn't tell you, your perfect room is sitting right under the nightclub. Every night, the thump of bass rattles the ceiling while you're trying to sleep. Guests slam doors, crew carts roll past your hallway at 5 a.m., and the party upstairs doesn't stop until well past midnight. One passenger on Symphony of the Seas said it felt like their bed was vibrating with every beat of the DJ's music, and no amount of earplugs could save them. Here's the truth Royal Caribbean doesn't advertise. Not all cabins are created equal. In fact, some rooms are notorious among frequent cruisers as red zones, too noisy, too shaky, or too close to crew access points. You'll find these especially near the back of the ship, under pool decks, or beside service corridors. And because they're technically the same category as better rooms, you often pay the same price, or get tricked into thinking it's a deal. This matters because once you're on board, there's little you can do. If the ship's full, you're stuck. And a bad night's sleep on vacation, that throws off everything. Your energy, your mood, and your ability to enjoy the next day's activities. It's one of the fastest ways to turn a dream cruise into a cranky countdown. The fix? Always check the deck plans before booking. Look at the cabins directly above and below yours. If you're under a dining hall, gym, nightclub, or pool, skip it. Sites like cruisedeckplans.com and message boards like Cruise Critic are gold mines for honest cabin reviews. You'll thank yourself later. And if you think a noisy room is frustrating, wait until you see how Royal Caribbean's drink packages mess with your wallet and your expectations. The sales pitch is everywhere. Buy the deluxe beverage package and never worry about drink prices again. It sounds perfect. Unlimited cocktails, premium coffee, sodas, smoothies, even bottled water. But here's what many first-time Royal Caribbean guests find out too late. The drink packages come with a twist. One couple sailing aboard Odyssey of the Seas bought the deluxe beverage package for their 7-night cruise. What they didn't realize? The package price changes daily, and they bought it on a week where it was nearly $90 per person per day. That's over $1,200 for 2 people, just for drinks. And when they added up what they actually drank, the value didn't even come close. "We had 4 cocktails a day and some water," the wife said. "We would have spent half that paying as we went." The problem lies in how Royal Caribbean markets the package. The website says you can save up to 40%, but that's based on bar menu prices, not real spending habits. Most guests aren't drinking 8 to 10 beverages a day, every day. Add in port days when you're off the ship, and the math gets worse. Plus, all adults in a cabin must buy the package if one does, unless you call and request an exemption. That's another sneaky layer most people miss. Why does this matter? Because what feels like freedom, I can drink anything, turns into pressure to drink more just to get your money's worth. That's not relaxing. That's stressful. Here's the fix. Don't buy the package blindly. Before your cruise, check the current per-day rate, look up the actual drink prices on board, and calculate whether it makes sense for you. For many guests, the cheaper refreshment package plus a la carte cocktails ends up being smarter. But overpriced drinks aren't the only thing wearing people down. Behind the scenes, the crew working on Royal's biggest ships are dealing with their own kind of burnout, and it's not as glamorous as it looks. When Royal Caribbean launched its Oasis-class ships, the largest cruise ships in the world, the industry was stunned. With zip lines, surfing simulators, theaters, water parks, and even full-blown neighborhoods, these floating cities became the brand's pride and joy. But while guests see fun and spectacle, many crew members see exhaustion. A former Royal Caribbean bar server who worked on Wonder of the Seas described their experience as organized chaos at scale. They were responsible for covering 2 bars across 2 decks, often walking 10 to 12 miles a day, and getting only a few hours of sleep between double shifts. It felt like being in a Vegas casino that never closed, when they said, except I had to serve non-stop, with a smile, for 6 months straight. On mega ships that carry 6,000 to 7,000 guests, the staffing ratios don't always scale smoothly. Some departments are stretched thin, especially during port days or sea day rushes. And since these ships are so large, crew members often have to sprint between areas just to make it on time. That's before they even start cleaning, serving, assisting, or entertaining. Why does this matter for passengers? Because when the crew is overworked, everything slows down. You wait longer for drinks. You see more missed details in your room. And that normally cheerful server, they might be just barely holding it together. Guest satisfaction drops, not because the crew doesn't care, but because they're being pulled in too many directions. Now, to be clear, Royal Caribbean invests more in training and entertainment than many other lines. But even with that investment, megaships push limits. The high guest count, the fast turnaround, the endless programming, it all adds up behind the scenes. So here's what you can do. Be patient, be kind, and if someone gives great service, mention them by name in your post-cruise survey. Royal actually rewards crew based on that feedback, and your 5 minutes could mean a lot. But don't get too comfortable yet. Just because your ship is spectacular doesn't mean the port you're heading to will be anything close to relaxing. You wake up, the sun is shining, and your Royal Caribbean ship is pulling into port. You're excited. Maybe it's Cozumel, maybe St. Thomas, but when you step off the gangway, the scene is more downtown traffic jam than island escape. Welcome to one of the biggest hidden frustrations on Royal Caribbean: overcrowded ports and overlapping shore excursions. With Royal's massive fleet and its competitors arriving at the same time, you can easily end up in a situation where 3 or 4 ships unload thousands of passengers into a single port. One guest arriving in Nassau described it as a wave of people crashing into a wall of heat, lines, and confusion. Shore excursions, which are supposed to be relaxing highlights of your trip, suddenly become logistics nightmares. You wait in line for buses, you wait in line for food, and by the time you reach the actual destination, it's packed with so many tourists that the vibe is more theme park than tropical paradise. The most frustrating part? These excursions aren't cheap. Guests often pay $80 to $200 per person for activities that end up feeling rushed and overcrowded. One couple who booked a snorkeling trip said they spent more time waiting for gear and shuttling between boats than actually in the water. It felt like a school field trip, not a luxury cruise experience, they said. Why does this happen? Royal Caribbean's fleet is massive, and its itineraries are tightly scheduled. Ports like Labadee or Perfect Day at Coco Cay, which are privately owned, handle crowds better. But in public ports like San Juan or Falmouth, it's every cruise line for itself. And when arrival times overlap, the result is pure bottleneck. So what's the solution? Book early morning excursions when fewer ships have docked. Or better yet, explore on your own, safely and with research. Local taxis, beach clubs, or walking tours often give you more freedom and less frustration. And always check cruisetimetables.com to see how many ships are in port the same day. But let's say you've braved the crowds and made it back to the ship. Now you want to relax, check in with family, maybe upload a few vacation photos. Well, brace yourself, because Royal's next weak spot might hit you where it hurts most: your connection. Royal Caribbean promotes its internet service, VOOM, as the fastest internet at sea. And when you see that bold claim, you might picture smooth video calls, fast uploads, and Instagram posts going up in seconds. But here's what many guests discover just hours into their cruise: it's fast until it isn't. One guest on Harmony of the Seas described buying the top-tier VOOM Surf plus Stream package to stay in touch with work. But during a full day at sea, they couldn't even open a Google Doc. Video calls were glitchy, emails timed out, and the ship's app kept disconnecting mid-check-in. I paid over $100 for the week, they said, and it felt like I was back on 2004 dial-up. Here's the reality. VOOM can be fast under ideal conditions, but when thousands of guests are trying to stream, scroll, and post at the same time, especially during sea days, the system chokes. The bandwidth gets spread thin and connections slow to a crawl. Even worse, some parts of the ship have better signals than others. Try logging in from a steel-walled interior cabin mid-deck. Good luck. This matters because people don't just use Wi-Fi to scroll Instagram anymore. They use it to check in for flights, access reservations, message family, or do remote work. When that system doesn't perform, it adds stress. You feel cut off, behind, or frustrated that you paid for something that doesn't deliver. Want to avoid this mess? Here's the fix. Don't buy internet blindly. If you only need light access, buy a 24-hour plan for specific days, not the full cruise. And if connection really matters to you, use public areas like the library or promenade where signal strength is stronger. Avoid peak hours like midday on sea days. Also, if you're cruising with a group, remember, only one device can use the login at a time unless you upgrade. That means awkward moments when someone gets kicked off just as they're trying to send an important message. So yes, Voom is better than many cruise lines, but it's still far from perfect. And speaking of awkward moments, few things feel worse than being cornered by a smiling crew member who's clearly trying to upsell you on something you didn't ask for. Quick note, if you found even one thing helpful so far, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps this video reach more smart cruisers like you. And if you want to dodge more cruise traps and insider mistakes, subscribe now so you never get blindsided by your next vacation. All right, let's keep going. And the next mistake? It's awkward. You're walking through the Royal Promenade, enjoying your first sea day, when a smiling crew member approaches you. Have you tried Giovanni's Italian yet? Before you can answer, they're offering you a limited time deal. Steakhouse dinner, half-off sushi, or a chef's table experience that's apparently filling up fast. At first it feels helpful, but by the third or fourth time, it starts to feel like you're being sold to at every turn. Royal Caribbean is known for its impressive lineup of specialty restaurants, from Jamie's Italian to Chop's Grill to Izumi. The food is often excellent, and the experience can be worth the splurge. But here's the truth most guests don't know. Crew members are under pressure to upsell these packages, and in some cases, their performance is tracked based on how many upgrades they can push each sailing. One former Royal Caribbean server explained, "We get briefed before every dinner shift. There are sales goals. If we don't hit them, we hear about it." Another crew member working guest services said they were expected to mention dining upgrades during casual interactions, even when a guest was just asking for directions. Why does this matter? Because it changes the dynamic on board. Instead of pure service, you start to feel like you're being gently marketed to everywhere. Whether you're relaxing in the solarium, passing through the lobby, or enjoying a show, there's a good chance someone will mention a can't-miss dining opportunity. For some, it's no big deal. For others, it starts to feel more like a sales floor than a vacation. Here's your move. Decide your dining plans before you sail. Look at menus, read recent reviews, and pre-book any restaurants you're genuinely excited about. Royal often offers dining packages, pre-cruise at a discount, and booking early helps you avoid being cornered into something last minute out of guilt or pressure. And if you want to stick to the main dining room and buffet, that's perfectly fine. Many guests do. You're not missing out if you don't want to upgrade. But while food is one area where upsells sneak in, tech is another. And Royal's high-tech promises don't always go as smoothly as you'd expect. Royal Caribbean loves to brag about its high-tech cruising experience, and on paper it sounds incredible. Facial recognition at check-in, digital boarding passes, real-time reservations through the Royal Caribbean app. But in practice, it's not always as smooth as they make it sound. Let's start with the app. Guests are told to download the Royal Caribbean app before sailing. It's supposed to be your key to everything: boarding info, daily schedule, dining reservations, messaging your group, and more. But many passengers, especially older travelers or first-timers, find it glitchy, confusing, and frustrating to navigate. One guest described it as a tech demo still in beta after it crashed 3 times during embarkation and wiped out their dinner plans. Another common pain point: check-in confusion. You're supposed to upload your passport photo, select an arrival time, complete health forms, and scan your set sail pass, all before you even step foot in the terminal. If any part fails, blurry photo, missing field, or app freeze, it throws off the whole process. You end up in the dreaded manual line, watching other guests breeze through while you're stuck fixing a problem you didn't create. This matters because it sets the tone for your cruise. Starting off with stress at the terminal and a malfunctioning app can turn excitement into anxiety. And if you're traveling with kids or a group, keeping everyone synced through the app becomes its own mini-mission. Even once on board, the tech doesn't always deliver. The messaging feature, which lets you text friends or family on the ship, only works if everyone has purchased Wi-Fi. No Wi-Fi? No messaging. Want to see the daily schedule? You might find outdated info if you're not constantly refreshing. Here's the fix. Complete check-in on a desktop, where the interface is more stable. Take screenshots of everything: your set sail pass, arrival time, and luggage tags. Download the app, but don't rely on it for everything. Bring printed backups just in case. Royal Caribbean's tech is ambitious, and when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't, it leaves guests scrambling. And speaking of scrambling, not every part of Royal is stressful. In fact, if you're lucky enough to be staying in a suite, you're about to experience a level of cruising most people never see. Not all cabins are created equal. And on Royal Caribbean, booking a suite doesn't just mean more space. It means entering an entirely different world. Guests staying in Sky Class or Star Class suites, especially on ships like Oasis of the Seas or wonder of the seas, experience a level of VIP treatment that feels more like a private resort than a cruise ship. Private elevators, exclusive lounges, top-tier dining, priority boarding, and even personal Royal Genies, Royal Caribbean's version of a butler, are just the beginning. One family sailing in a two-bedroom aqua theater suite recalled being personally escorted onto the ship, whisked past the check-in lines, greeted with champagne, and taken directly to a private dining area. "We never touched the buffet once," they laughed. "Our genie booked every show, every meal, even had cookies waiting in our room every night. It spoiled us for life." From the cruise perspective, suite guests often get the most experienced staff, and service teams are specially trained to cater to their needs. That doesn't mean they get special treatment just because they spend more. It's because Royal builds these packages with higher service expectations and dedicated teams that aren't split across 30 cabins or 5 restaurants. One steward shared, "It's easier to provide great service when you're working with guests who respect it and who don't treat you like background noise." Why does this matter to you as a cruiser? Because Royal's suite program isn't just about flash. It's one of the few loyalty-based upgrades in the cruise world that actually delivers consistent, premium value. You're not just getting a bigger room, you're unlocking an entirely smoother, more personalized experience. So should everyone book a suite? Not necessarily. But if you're traveling for a special occasion, with family or on a longer sailing, it might be worth crunching the numbers. Royal often bundles perks like drink packages, internet, and gratuities into star-class rates, which can make it more affordable than it first looks. And speaking of perks that pay off behind the scenes, there's something Royal does for its crew that most passengers never hear about, and it makes a huge difference in morale. Cruise ships are built for guests, that's obvious, but what many travelers don't realize is how vastly different life can be below deck, especially for the crew. Long hours, tight quarters, limited privacy, it's all part of the job. But here's something that surprises many people. Royal Caribbean is actually one of the better cruise lines when it comes to crew housing and facilities. A former housekeeping supervisor who worked on both Carnival and Royal Caribbean put it simply, "When I transferred to Royal, it felt like I could finally breathe." While most cruise lines stick to the industry minimum, shared cabins, bunk beds, and bathrooms down the hall, Royal has made a visible effort to modernize crew living spaces on its newer ships. On ships like Odyssey of the Seas or Symphony of the Seas, many crew members have private or semi-private cabins, each with their own bathroom. There's improved air circulation, sound insulation, and even better lighting, which may sound small, but after a 12-hour shift, it makes a world of difference. There are also expanded crew-only areas, lounges with TVs and Wi-Fi, small fitness rooms, and outdoor space for fresh air during breaks. Why does this matter to passengers? Because when a cruise line invests in its crew, the crew has more energy, more morale, and more reason to stay. That means lower turnover, better trained staff, and a stronger sense of team culture on board. You can feel it in how your steward remembers your name, in how the bartenders smile instead of just survive, and in how the overall atmosphere feels less robotic and more relaxed. Crew members have shared that they actually look forward to assignments on Royal ships because the living conditions don't feel like punishment, and that attitude reflects in how they treat guests. One dining room server said, "When I sleep well, I serve well." Simple as that. So even though you'll probably never see the crew quarters, the comfort and care Royal provides behind the scenes ripple throughout your entire trip. It's one of the brand's invisible advantages, and it's a big reason why so many crew members stay loyal. But speaking of loyalty, Royal Caribbean has another edge, one that doesn't require a suite or a massive spend. It's something even first-time cruisers can tap into on their very next voyage. Most cruise loyalty programs make you feel like you need to sail for a decade before you see a single perk. But with Royal Caribbean's Crown and Anchor Society, the rewards start surprisingly early, and they're actually useful. Let's start with the basics. You earn points for every night you sail, double points if you book a suite. And while many cruise lines wait until you've hit the super elite level before giving you anything real, Royal starts handing out tangible perks at just 7 nights. That's right, after a single standard cruise, you're already eligible for priority check-in, exclusive onboard discounts, free internet minutes, and even invites to special events. That's not bad for a brand that runs one of the world's largest fleets. One guest sailing their second cruise on Navigator of the Seas shared how shocked they were to be invited to a private loyalty reception. "We were only gold level," they said, "but the captain shook our hand and thanked us for coming back. We even got free drinks." That kind of acknowledgement feels rare, and it builds a sense of personal connection that many guests rave about. Crew members like the system too. Why? Because the Crown and Anchor program encourages repeat guests who already know how to cruise respectfully. Experienced cruisers tend to be more patient, more understanding, and more appreciative. One server explained, "When someone sits down and says, 'We're Diamond members, we know the drill,' I know it's going to be a smooth night." And the program keeps scaling. At higher levels, Platinum, Diamond, and beyond, you start getting daily free drinks, laundry discounts, priority theater seating, and access to private lounges. These aren't just vanity perks. They can seriously improve your cruise, especially on longer itineraries. Want to take advantage of it? Sign up for the Crown and Anchor Society before your first cruise. Points start adding up immediately, and you'll get personalized offers and discounts for future sailings. You don't need to be a high roller, just consistent. In a world where loyalty programs often feel like smoke and mirrors, Royals is refreshingly transparent, and sometimes just being loyal or just being kind can unlock rewards far beyond what's printed in the brochure. Because for all the ship features and service perks, some of the best treatment on Royal comes from something no one can fake: genuine appreciation for respectful guests. There's one perk that never shows up in your cruise contract, loyalty status, or booking confirmation, but it just might unlock the best service you'll ever get on a Royal Caribbean ship. It's simple, it's free, and it's often forgotten: being genuinely respectful to the crew. You'd be amazed how far a kind attitude goes at sea. Crew members work 10 to 14 hours a day, often without days off for months. They sleep in tiny cabins, miss birthdays and holidays back home, and do it all while keeping a smile on their face for thousands of strangers. So when a guest breaks that pattern, when they go out of their way to be thoughtful, patient, and kind, the crew notices, and they remember. One longtime stateroom attendant shared a story about a guest who learned her name on day 1, left her a thank you card on day 3, and tipped her with a small chocolate bar each night, just to brighten her shift. "She didn't have to," the steward said, "but that cruise was one of my favorites because of her." Another bartender on Odyssey of the Seas said that the guests he remembers most aren't the biggest spenders. They're the ones who ask how his day is going. "People think we don't care," he said, "but we talk, we share stories. And yes, sometimes we go the extra mile for the ones who treat us like humans, and that's where the magic happens." You might get a surprise plate of chocolate-covered strawberries, a secret tip about the best quiet deck, a last-minute seat at a full show. None of it is guaranteed, but crew members often have the flexibility to reward kindness in small, meaningful ways. Want to cruise like an insider? Start by treating the crew with genuine respect. Learn their names. Say thank you, out loud and in surveys. Be patient during busy hours. And don't be afraid to strike up a quick conversation. You'll not only improve your own trip, you'll uplift theirs too. Because at the end of the day, Royal Caribbean's biggest secret isn't in the deck plans, dining menus, or apps. It's in the quiet power of human connection and how much smoother, happier, and more memorable your cruise becomes when you treat everyone on board like part of your vacation, not just the help. We hope this gave you a clearer, more honest look at what it's really like to sail with Royal Caribbean. Now we want to hear from you. Have you cruised with Royal before? What was amazing? What fell short? And what do you wish someone had told you beforehand? Drop your story in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, even just one tip, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more no-fluff cruise advice from people who've been there. We break down every line, every trick, and every crew insight the cruise companies don't put in the brochures.